So I know we talked a little bit in another segment just kind of about eating disorders and disordered eating and spaces where there are a lot of people of color. So I wanted to touch on another marginalized group and talk about the LGBTQIA plus community and kind of what eating disorders look like there. And so I want to talk a little bit about just in general what that looks like and sometimes what might be the barriers to treatment. And so very similarly, like folks in this community definitely struggle from additional stress and a lot of fear of rejection just because of who they are as people. And so there's a lot of pressure in general of liking yourself when it feels like maybe other people don't. And so sometimes you're up against some of those internalized negative feelings, whether you grew up that way or, your friends are a certain way or your community is a certain way, or maybe you grew up religious or, your culture thinks a few certain things, that stuff can be really difficult. And so being mindful about the stress that you have just about yourself, right? So recognizing that all of these things impact and create stressors on someone that's in the LGBTQIA plus community and how maybe that's something that the rest of us don't have to deal with in the same way. So wanting all of that acceptance, right, specifically in that community can be difficult sometimes because much like everything else, like individuals in that community really move on a spectrum. And so everything kind of works how it feels comfortable for that person. And so what we tend to see is that there is a little bit of overcompensation to find a lot of acceptance within the LGBTQIA plus community because you're not getting that acceptance from other places. There's a lot of the orthorexia seen here, specifically with men who are wanting to be very slim and athletic and really feed into those tropes of like what it means to be like an acceptable like gay male. And so you do tend to see a lot of that. And that can be also really difficult for a lot of women in this community who maybe don't feel comfortable being as feminine, or maybe their bodies are naturally like a certain way. And they're trying to fit into these molds of like what it means to be acceptable as a woman in general. And what does that mean for how you present and how you look and what your body does? And so it creates a lot of body image issues, and it can be really, really deep. And it can be very painful. And a lot of that can impact the relationship with food, the relationship with movement and exercise, and, a combination of those things specifically related to your body and how it's accepted. And so this can look a little bit different for individuals who identify as being transgender. And so a lot of that more comes with trying to fit into what maybe would be masculine or femininely accepted as you're transitioning. And so it may create some of those negative feelings, like if your testosterone maybe works a little bit slower, or like you're not growing hair in the place that you want to, or, your voice isn't dropping as much, like maybe you're starting to feel frustrated about that, or not losing your hair as fast as you want to, or your body's not, becoming curvy in the way that you want, like once you start taking estrogen. These are big things. And so just the body dysphoria of being someone who's transgendered, which is like the uncomfortability in your body because it's, not what you want it to be. And then having to also feel accepted in these communities when maybe it's hard for you to accept yourself or accept all the parts of your body can be extremely overwhelming. And so it's always important that if you're feeling overwhelmed by these things, or if you think like, oh yeah, that kind of sounds like something I was dealing with, like, please know that there are tons and tons of providers that want to help you get through that, realizing that this is a community that needs the support, that deserves the support, should have it and have access to it all of the time. That is super important. And so don't let the idea of some conservative people keep you from thinking that you're worthy of receiving that care. Can that be a barrier sometimes? Absolutely, right? And so making sure that you have someone that understands how the community works, the appropriate vernacular and language. Specifically, if you're someone who is transgender, then you want to know someone who's going to be able to speak to the transition, the way that your body changes once you start getting on hormones, what that looks like, how that impacts your emotions, your ability to engage with other people, and all of those kinds of things. All of that is going to impact you significantly around your body image specifically, but sometimes with your relationship with food as well. So it's just important to be watching out for those things as you're moving through the community, as you're coming out, or maybe even closeted for a long time, trying to just function day to day.